My name is Maya Collins. I am 29 years old. 10 years ago, I lived in a quiet town called Belmere. Back then, I was 19, just finishing school and living with my mother in a small house near the bakery where she worked. Our life was simple, and I had never been far from home. I was shy, but I had big dreams. I wanted to leave Belmere someday and do something more with my life. But that year, something happened that changed me forever. I still remember it clearly, even after all this time. There was a boy in our town named Callum. He was 22, a few years older than me, and everyone knew his name. He was handsome and drove a shiny black car. He wore expensive clothes and had a gold watch on his wrist. The girls at school used to talk about him, and I often saw them looking at him when he passed by. Callum had a way of smiling that made you feel like you were the only person in the room. People said he came from money, but nobody really knew how he spent his days. Some said he helped in his father's garage. Others said he did nothing at all. I met him one afternoon when he came into the bakery. I was helping my mother with the counter, and he ordered a coffee and a cinnamon bun. He said my name, though I didn't remember telling him. I looked up, surprised, and he smiled. That was the first time we spoke. After that, he started coming more often. He would wait for me outside school or drive by slowly when I walked home. I knew people were talking about it. Some warned me, especially my friend Clara. "He's not a good person," she told me. "He plays with girls' feelings. Don't trust him." My mother said the same. "He's not your future," she whispered once when she saw me looking out the window at his car. But I was young and full of hope. I thought they were wrong about him. I believed Callum saw something special in me. He made me feel beautiful. He talked to me like I mattered, and no one had done that before. One afternoon, he offered me a ride home. I said yes. We talked about music and places we wanted to see. He made me laugh. I started to look for him every day. When he wasn't around, I missed him. One Friday evening, there was a town dance at the community center. Clara and I had planned to go together. I put on my nicest dress and did my hair. My mother stood in my doorway before I left. "Don't go anywhere alone," she said. "And don't trust that boy too easily." I nodded and promised I would be careful. At the dance, the room was full of music and lights. Everyone was dressed up. When Callum walked in, people noticed. He came straight toward me. "You look amazing," he said. My heart beat faster. We danced during the slow songs. His hand rested lightly on my waist. We talked between songs. He said he liked quiet girls with kind eyes. I felt like I was in a dream. When the party ended, he asked me if I wanted to go for a drive. I hesitated, remembering my mother's words, but he smiled and said, "Just a short drive. I'll bring you back." I nodded. We got into his car and drove through the streets of Belmere. The shops were closed and the houses were dark. The only sounds were the tires on the road and the soft music from his car speakers. I looked out the window and saw stars in the sky. After a while, We left the main road and turned onto a smaller one. The lights from town disappeared behind us. I asked where we were going. "Somewhere quiet," he said. "I want to talk to you without noise." I tried to smile, but something inside me felt uneasy. The car slowed down and stopped near a wooded area. There were no lights, no houses, just trees and the night. He turned off the engine. He looked at me and moved closer. "You're different from the others," he said. "I like that." He reached out and touched my hand. Then he leaned in, trying to kiss me. I moved back and said quietly, "Callum, I don't want this. Please take me home." His face changed. His smile disappeared. "Are you serious?" he asked, surprised. "You came with me. Now you're acting like a child." I pulled my hand away. "I said no," I repeated. "Please take me home." His voice grew cold. "You're just like the others," he said. "Boring and scared." I reached for the door handle, but before I could open it, he got out of the car. He walked around, opened my door, and said, "Get out then." I stepped out, confused. "Callum, what are you doing?" I asked. But he had already walked back to the driver's side. "Walk home," he said. "I'm done." Then he drove away, leaving me alone in the dark. I stood there in shock. The wind was cold against my arms. My legs felt weak. I didn't know where I was, but I knew I had to start walking. The road was rough, and my shoes were not made for this. My feet began to hurt. I kept walking, trying not to cry. My breath came out in short, cold clouds. After a while, I saw a road sign and turned toward the town. I had to walk almost 3 kilometers that night. When I reached home, the lights were still on. My mother was sitting on the couch, her face full of worry. When she saw me, she stood up. "Where were you?" she asked, but I couldn't answer. I went straight to my room, sat on the bed, and let the tears fall. My feet had blisters. My heart felt broken. I had trusted someone who didn't care about me. I had believed in something that wasn't real. The next day, I told Clara what happened. Her eyes filled with sadness, but not surprise. "He's done this before," she said. "He did it to me, and to others." I felt a sharp pain in my chest. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked. Clara looked down. "I thought you knew." "Everyone knows." That night, I lay in bed thinking about everything. I felt ashamed, but something inside me changed. I promised myself I would not be that girl again. I would not be the girl who waited for someone who didn't respect her. I would become stronger. I would take care of myself. And one day, I would leave Belmere behind. Before I share the rest of my story, I need to know, where are you listening from? Knowing someone hears me, understands me, gives me strength. 2 years passed after that night. I didn't speak to Callum again. Sometimes I saw his car in town or heard people mention his name, but I never looked at him. I finished school, helped my mother, and slowly saved some money. I worked evenings in the bakery and cleaned houses on weekends. Life in Belmere felt small now, but I had changed. I no longer dreamed with my head in the clouds. I had one clear goal: to leave and start again somewhere new. When I turned 21, I found a job in the city. It was in a small bookstore on a quiet street. The shop sold both new and old books. It wasn't a big job, and the pay wasn't much, but it gave me a reason to move. My mother hugged me goodbye with tears in her eyes. "Be careful, Maya," she said, "and don't forget who you are." I promised I wouldn't. The city was loud and fast, but I liked it. I rented a small room above a flower shop and took the bus to work each day. The bookstore smelled like paper, ink, and coffee. I arranged shelves, helped customers, and learned to enjoy the simple rhythm of my new life. I liked walking home in the evening, even when it rained. One rainy afternoon, I forgot my umbrella. The sky turned dark quickly, and cold drops hit my face as I stepped outside. I ran to a nearby tree and stood under it, hoping the rain would stop soon. That's when I saw a man walking toward me with a large white umbrella. He stopped in front of me and smiled. "You look like you could use some help," he said. His voice was warm, and his smile felt honest. He wore a gray coat and carried a leather bag. "Yes, thank you," I said quietly. He stepped closer and held the umbrella above us both. We walked slowly down the street together. "My name's Owen," he said. "I work at the office near the bookstore. I've seen you a few times." I smiled. "I'm Maya. I work there." We walked in silence for a moment, listening to the rain. When we reached the bookstore, he stopped. "Can I see you again?" he asked. I hesitated for a second, then nodded. "Maybe," I said. The next day, Owen came into the bookstore. He bought a small novel. The day after, he came back for a book of poems. Then he came every day, even if it was just to say hello. We started talking about books, music, and city life. He was calm, kind, and never tried too hard to impress me. He didn't have a shiny car or a loud voice. He asked questions and listened carefully. Slowly, I began to trust him. One day, he asked if I wanted to get coffee after work. I said yes. We walked to a small cafe with wooden chairs and soft music. I told him about Belmere, about my job in the bakery, and the night I walked home alone. He didn't say much, but he looked at me with quiet understanding. He told me about his sister, who was younger and sometimes a little wild. He said he worried about her, but loved her deeply. He talked about his parents, his dreams, and the places he wanted to visit someday. I liked hearing about his life. His world felt safe. After that, we started spending more time together. We went to museums, parks, and quiet cafes. He made me laugh in a soft, natural way. We never rushed anything. He never pushed me to talk or act a certain way. With him, I didn't have to pretend. But just when I felt comfortable, something happened. One morning, he didn't come to the bookstore. I thought maybe he was busy. But then another day passed. Then a week. I looked for him each day, hoping to see that white umbrella again. Nothing. I didn't have his phone number, and he had never asked for mine. I tried not to think too much, but inside I felt a familiar pain. Was I wrong again? Was I someone easy to forget? I remembered Callum and all the warnings I didn't hear. I wondered if Owen had smiled at someone else the same way. Maybe I was just something to pass the time. One evening, I walked home in the rain. I didn't care that I was wet. I walked slowly, feeling tired and sad. When I reached my building, I looked up, and there he was. Owen stood by the door, holding that same white umbrella. My heart jumped, and I forgot about the rain. "Where were you?" I asked. He looked at me with a soft, tired smile. "I'm sorry," he said. "My sister was sick. I had to travel to see her. It was sudden. I should have told you." I didn't say anything at first. Then I smiled. "I'm glad you're back." He held the umbrella over both of us. "Let's take a walk," he said. We walked through the wet streets together. The lights from the shops reflected on the wet ground. I looked up at the sky. It was still raining, but I felt warm. Owen was different. He had waited. He had returned. And most of all, he had not broken the quiet trust between us. After that, we saw each other more often. We met on weekends, visited bookstores, and made simple meals at my place. I started feeling safe again. One evening, as we sat in the park watching the sunset, Owen turned to me. He didn't say anything big or dramatic. He simply reached for my hand and held it. At that moment, I knew he wasn't like the others. He wasn't there to take something. He was there to stay. Years have passed since the day Owen held my hand in that quiet city park. At first, we took things slowly. We spent time together, shared our thoughts, and learned how to trust again. I still remember the feeling of being nervous around him, even after months of knowing each other. But over time, that nervousness turned into comfort. I no longer waited for him to disappear. He always came back. He always stayed. When I turned 24, we moved into a small apartment with tall windows and a little balcony filled with flower pots. Owen worked in the same office nearby. I still worked at the bookstore, but I started helping the manager with ideas for events. We held reading afternoons for children and quiet book nights for adults. I found joy in the soft routines of our life together. We cooked dinner together. We listened to music on the radio. On weekends, we bought bread from a market and took walks through the old neighborhoods. He never made big promises. He didn't talk about forever with poetic words. Instead, he showed up every day. He brought me tea when I had a cold. He waited outside with an umbrella when it rained. On Sunday mornings, we sat with newspapers and coffee, legs touching under the small kitchen table. I learned that love isn't always exciting or loud. Sometimes love is quiet, steady, and warm like morning light through a window. One evening, while walking home from the market, Owen stopped in front of a small shop window. Inside, there were gold rings on display. I followed his eyes and then looked up at him. He turned and smiled. "Do you want to go inside?" he asked. I nodded, surprised. Inside the shop, he looked at several rings and picked up a simple one. He held it carefully and said, "I think this one is right." He didn't kneel or give a long speech. He simply turned to me, held the ring, and asked, "Maya, will you marry me?" My heart beat fast. I couldn't speak at first. Then I smiled, and my eyes filled with tears. "Yes," I said. That was all. We had a small wedding the next spring. My mother came from Belmere, wearing her best blue dress. Clara came too, holding a small bunch of flowers. I wore a simple white gown with lace at the sleeves. Owen wore a gray suit. We stood in a garden with only a few close friends. We said our vows under a tree full of green leaves. There were no big speeches or music, just the sound of wind in the trees and the soft hum of bees nearby. We laughed when a bird flew overhead during the ceremony. It felt like the right way to begin. After we married, we moved to a little house near the edge of the city. It was not big, but it had everything we needed. 2 small bedrooms, a kitchen that opened into the garden, and a living room filled with afternoon sun. There was a tree in the yard that dropped pink flowers in spring. On rainy days, we stayed inside and read books. On sunny days, we ate lunch outside with our shoes off. We planted flowers, painted the bedroom walls, and bought second-hand chairs from a market. 1 year later, I found out I was pregnant. I remember standing in the bathroom holding the test. I was shaking. I walked out of the room with tears in my eyes. Owen was reading on the couch. He looked up and saw my face. I didn't say a word. He stood, walked over, and hugged me tight. I whispered, "We're going to have a baby." He smiled, kissed my forehead, and said, "I know." Now, I am 29 years old. I am sitting near the window, and it is raining outside. The drops hit the glass gently. I can hear Owen in the next room, building the baby's crib. The walls are already painted a soft green. We don't know if we're having a boy or a girl. We said we want to be surprised. I have folded little clothes into neat piles. There's a blanket my mother made with her own hands. It smells like lavender. This morning, Owen brought home a second-hand bookshelf. He said we should start a small library for the baby. We placed picture books, fairy tales, and a few of our favorites from childhood on the top shelf. We sat on the floor and read aloud from one of them. I laughed when he made silly voices for the animals. He laughed too, and then he looked at me. "You'll be a good mother," he said. Sometimes I think about the girl I was at 19. I remember the sound of my shoes on that dark road in Belmere. I remember the cold night air on my skin, the way my chest hurt from holding back tears, and the shame I felt for trusting someone like Callum. But I also remember the moment I stood in my bedroom and made a promise to myself that I would become stronger and that I would never give my heart to someone who didn't respect me again. Callum never changed. Clara told me he had 2 marriages that ended badly. He still drives around Belmere in his same black car, still looking for attention, still chasing something he cannot keep. People don't talk about him as much anymore. Most have moved on. Sometimes I wonder if he remembers me, but it doesn't matter. He no longer has space in my life. I don't hate him. I feel sorry for him. But I'm grateful that he showed me who he truly was that night. I'm grateful I learned early, because that pain, that cold walk in the dark, led me here. I've learned that sometimes life gives us what we need, not what we want. Sometimes the people who hurt us the most are the ones who help us grow. And sometimes love arrives softly, not with roses or fireworks, but with an umbrella in the rain and a quiet voice asking, "Do you want to walk together?" Now, when it rains, Owen and I still take that same white umbrella and walk together. We don't talk much. We don't need to. We walk slowly, side by side, like we did the day we met. And every time I look at that umbrella, I remember how far I've come. I remember that I was never truly alone. I just hadn't met the right person yet. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, comment, and share. More emotional and inspiring stories are coming soon.